Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Charles Burnett.
Thank you very much.
I just want to start out um, we showed this film in '97 here in this theater, actually, as part of the Witnessing for Everyday Heroes, which was a Human Rights Watch Film Society retrospective of your work. And it struck me because rewatching this earlier this morning, there's a lot of witnessing in the film, and there's a lot of cross-cutting between Michael Boatman and Lori Petty, and then immediately there's a sea of sort of white officers that are just staring directly into the camera. And I was wondering if you could talk about your approach to the staging in this film, which I think is interesting, and the cinematography, because the film starts with this comic book fantasy of JJ's as he's graduating the academy, and this is what he thinks he's going to be, this hero cop. And the film continues to be sort of surreal with lots of blues and oranges, but becomes extremely realistic in the type of sort of institutionalized racism and power dynamics that we've seen in the news across the country with, a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Justice Department released a report on Baltimore. We've seen reports on Ferguson. And I just wonder if you could talk about that choice, the stylistic choice that you made to, this is not shot in a sort of what we would typically see in these message movies in like a sort of cinema verite way. Can you talk about that decision?
Well, I wanted to do it, shoot it from JJ's point of view, in a sense. When he was young, he read a lot of comic books, and if you read the comic books or saw them, usually the colors are very saturated. They were like blues and yellows when you saw police comic books, So I took that motif and applied it here in the beginning, and as JJ becomes more mature and less naive, let's say, he becomes, it becomes more his point of view, but no longer the sort of dream and romanticizing the police department. And I just want to say, the story is based on a number of factual things that happened, but primarily it's based on Johnny D. Johnson's life in the police department and life in Signal Hill Sheriff's Department, where he was the first black officer to integrate the department when there was this murder of this young athlete that supposedly had killed himself in jail, and there was no evidence to prove that could have happened. Yet still, the police were exonerated and whatever it is, and there were other incidents. In L.A., there was this group of sheriff officers that was in the county. They had a name like the Rough Riders or something like that, and they had this reputation of being so brutal and actually killing people, to the point where there was this famous news reporter in L.A. named Baxter Ward, who every other day he would come on the station complaining about the activity of these police officers, but no one did anything about it, and the Teddy Woods incident, that the one that Ice Cube plays, was based on another real story, So all of these things were events that actually happened, and I just sort of tied them together and make it into a narrative, JJ's story.
And how did you come to this story? I mean, I know you were, after To Sleep with Anger, you worked on America Becoming with Daishil Kim Gibson, and then it was several years before this was released, and I was wondering if you could talk about the process of, because I believe this was actually based on another screenplay, correct?
Yeah. Chet Walker, who's a famous basketball player, became a producer and started to produce films, and he had the Johnny D. Johnson story, and he had a script written on it, and he came to me with it, and I liked it. But it, like most material, you sort of have to make it your own and rewrite it and things like that, and that's what I did. The original script was basically about John Eddie Johnson, and I wanted to broaden it and make it, much more of a story that was symptomatic of all police, not all, but a number of the departments around the country, and so I included all these other stories.
And quite famously, there were some issues in the post-production period of this film, including a infamous trailer that Miramax cut for this, which is basically like makes it seem like a Boys to the Hood movie starring Ice Cube.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that struggle to get this released? Because I believe it was finished in '94 and then not actually seen until 1995.
I don't know when exact release, but I mean, there's always problems with films, in some form or another, and and it started off with trying to get the financing for it, and we went to studios and independent producers and things like that, and it was a very subtle script at first, and so they kept wanting to make sure everyone understood what the movie was about, and if someone died in the movie, they wanted it to be known that they died, For example, like when Greenspan died, and was killed, let's say, I had it where, these bicyclists were riding up the hill, and they spotted the body, but you don't see that, You see the reaction, and then you see the next moment they're in the morgue. I mean, the body's in the morgue, and it's still no word of who it is, But it's quite obvious, that it's Greenspan, and then later on it comes out that it's Greenspan. Well, the studios wanted, or the producers, independent producers want the audience to be clear that it's a Greenspan. So I had to write in about 5 or 6 times, Greenspan is dead. Greenspan is dead. Okay. I said, no, we had to do it another time. It's dead. Okay. And then the last time, which was a kicker, was when the judge, she's in the room with the with attorneys and things like that, and she discovers that Greenspan is dead. She turns right into the camera. You mean Greenspan is dead? And I was like, God Almighty, enough is enough. And the French company came in, CB2000 came in, and they read the script, and they said, Charles, it's overwritten. I said, thank God, someone with some sense, yeah, it is. So I went and just stripped everything again, And then and there was some other issues we had with some of the producers. I mean, I don't want to go into that because it's really embarrassing, and I don't want to cast a bad light on CB2000, but, they don't exist anymore, but you wouldn't believe the stuff I had to go through. But Miramax, when they picked up the film, and they wanted to change it to be more of an action-packed kind of thing with guns and language, changes to more, 4-letter words, whatever in the language, and what happened was they screened the film in New Jersey. They did a test screening in New Jersey. And and the people in the audience weren't the audience the film was for. I can see that when we when we looked at the line, because there were fights in the line, about, I don't know, strange things were going on. And I looked, I said, no, this isn't the audience, for the film. And so, but they did a test, they took down responses. They took down responses, and the comments, obviously, a lot of people, they thought it was real. They thought it was a documentary. They didn't know there was music in it because it was in rap, and they thought it was about Ice Cube. And so they were like, "Where's Ice Cube? Where's Ice Cube?" And Ice Cube, he just has a cameo role, a very small role. I mean, and there was some issue about that. He's really a nice person and really good in many ways, but there's a lot of baggage comes with certain kinds of people for commercial reasons we chose. I mean, he was, like I said, he was very good, but it set the film up to be, more action-packed and that sort of thing. And we resisted the sort of interpretation Miramax put on it, and the posters and all that sort of thing like that. And I haven't seen the trailer, thank God, but I heard you were telling me about it, and I don't want to see,
I would avoid it. It's not the movie. It's not a trailer for the movie that we just saw.
Yeah.
It makes it look like you're gonna come and Ice Cube's gonna be doing the soundtrack rather than quoting Black and Blue.
Yeah, and the person who did the soundtrack is Stephen James Taylor, who is really a wonderful person. I mean, he's done just about all my films, and I can't say enough about him. And if you want a person to score your film, check out Stephen James Taylor. He doesn't charge very much, but he's very good. But he's talented. Yeah.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you next. I think that it's a lot of jazz influence, but there's also some very strange, like, musical screeching manipulation notes, and especially when as you get more and more into the insane conspiracy theory, and it becomes very jarring. And I wanted to know, like, what was your did you do a lot of work with Stephen on these kind of choices?
Yeah, Stephen has all sorts of instruments. I mean, and he has this keyboard kind of an instrument that is so complicated. It's like I don't know what it's like. It's really all these keys on it. And I think he and another person are the only ones that have this thing. And he used a lot of that. He used a lot of anything that can make a sound. He'll use. And which is very good, because you come up with these really strange sounds and very effective and works well with the film, and they don't really stand out, but they're there.
Yeah. I'd like to open questions up from the audience. If anyone, please raise your hands.
Hi, I'm Diana Campbell with Manhattan Network. I want to know, the film you made, how relevant is it to today, what's going on today? Are you thinking about doing something like Black Lives Matter, going into doing some type of writing for that? Yes, I just want to know how relevant is that, what you did before years today, and are you thinking about doing something else? Okay.
You've all heard the question, right? Yeah. Okay. One of the things is that you're talking about Black Lives Matter. Well, it's always been an issue where I grew up. I mean, it's a continuation in a sense. It's just that it's more clear and it's exposed. I mean, there were killings. I mean, kids were being killed and victimized by the police. But no one did anything about it. It wasn't until Rodney King was exposed, the brutality of the police. When we kind of just accepted it to a certain extent. There used to be like 77, if you've been to Los Angeles, 77 police stations. It's a very well-known police station. And, and all the kids had to go through 77 at some point, Even I went through there. And you'd come out, beat up and, bones broken and that sort of thing. And, and they would say, well, he fell down some stairs or something like that, And 77 is only one story, And so but no one asked about, well, can he fall down 3 steps of stairs and do all that damage, But the papers and everyone, they just accept it. And, and there was a police chief, Gates, who initiated this use of this baton. It was like a special baton that had a handle that comes out this way. And a number of black people who were arrested were strangled to death with this baton. And it took a while for the press and people to to say something about it. And when they questioned him on it, why so many black people were killed by it, his response was that well, black people are built differently. Their throats are built differently. So when they put the baton around their throat, it cuts off their artery, you know, and it's like people accepted that, but they got rid of the baton, so they can't use that anymore. But it was all these kids were being shot, you know, and there was plant a gun on him, you know, and said, well, he had a gun, so we had to shoot him, and all this kind of stuff. So that was an ongoing thing, and it never really, it never really changed. You know, it just got more and more. You know, it's like getting, you know, with you stand your ground and things like that. It just escalated and escalated and escalated, and to a point where, you know, I have 2 kids, and you know, I worry about them when they go out. You know, and I had to train them, teach them very early. You know, certain things you don't do around police. You know, you don't make a move, you don't do this or whatever it is, and even that doesn't help. I mean, you don't have to do anything and you get shot. You know, so when I did this film, I wanted to you know, to sort of expose a lot of these, you know, issues that the community was facing with the police department, and it's, you know, it's nothing new or anything like that, but it's getting worse and worse and worse, I feel, you know. But I mean, it's something that you want to continue, because, I mean, to do other projects like it, because it's an ongoing thing, you know. I wish I did have another story I can do on it, you know. Okay. Believe me, I'll talk to you afterwards about it. Yeah.
Any other audience? Oh, yes. So the question was, an initial was the observation that the initial stop in the first part of the movie, where the white officer like comes back and re-stops the woman, and she says, "You must feel like a big man," and that's something that Sandra Blaine was supposed to have said in her arrest. And then she asked, the rest of the question was how, because Michael Boatman's character arc is so dramatic and so spectacular, how did Charles work with Michael Boatman to craft this character?
Well, I wanted a character. Well, one of the themes of the story is how could you, you know, have good intentions and end up corrupt and being a part of the conspiracy, or, you know, and be a part of, you know, the criminal element in the police department, when your intentions are good, you know, and all it takes is just one little mistake, one little lie that you think you're doing the right thing, you know, and that's, you know, and that's the thing that initiates all these problems. And I wanted the character to be like Michael Boatman, this sort of young, naive person comes in with these dreams, and over a period of time, he becomes unwittingly involved in a case, thinking he's doing the wrong thing, and he ends up realizing that, you know, the journey he's taken, you know, and he discovers who he is, and he's done all this damage, you know, in a certain sense, and he pays for it. In fact, he's the only one that pays for it, you know. And but Michael Boatman is really a fine person to work with, a really good actor, and you know, it's one of these. I mean, I've worked with actors, unfortunately, that you can't tell them anything, you know, and God, that's a nightmare, you know. But when you work with someone who's working with you, you know, they're trying to get to the same spot you see them and want them to get, you know. It's such a pleasure, and Michael is that kind of a person, you know. And you know, he's very smart. He understood the character and where we wanted to go, and so it was a pleasure working with him.
Is there any? Oh, yes, right there. Yes.
What did I start shooting first? I don't remember exactly what scene we start. I usually sort of go in, start, you know, just some simple scene or something. You know, all the scenes are important, I think, but you know, just something that doesn't have that emotional a thing to it at first. You know, where actors can feel who they are, and the crew get settled and things like that. But the way film is, you have to just sort of just jump around or whatever, because some actors can't make it to certain times or whatever it is, or all sorts of things that prevent you from doing it in a chronological order or some sort of order or a script order. You may shoot the end, as you know, the end last or whatever it is, first or whatever. So I don't remember. I don't know.
Another question? Yes. In the end of the film is dedicated to Robert Merrill? And who is that?
I don't know. We had a lot of producers, and everyone had someone that they want to thank or recognize or something like that, And at that point, I'm out of the picture. I'm out of the picture at that point. But Merrill, I can't remember. I'm sure he's important to somebody, but I hope so. It's shameful because could have been some person, relative or something.
And we have time for one last question. Yes. So the question was, what was the storytelling decision behind making JJ's ally, Lori Petty's character, Deborah, who was the first woman and also Jewish? And what was the story, the decision to make that the focus of this film?
Well, like I said, the stories in the film are based on actual events and people to some extent. A little bit of exaggeration, of course, but one of the things was I went on a ride-along. I don't know if you've ever gone on a ride-along with the police department. If you really want to experience some excitement and a roller coaster ride, and with your stomach up here, go on a ride-along at one of the most active police stations. And I went along, and I went to a murder, a stabbing, police being shot at, and you're right in the middle of it, And it's like I went on a night shift, and was on a full moon on a Friday night, and it was like scary. It took me a week to come down, And one of the things you do, you learn how to, you understand a police officer in the sense that they do it every night, and the stress and everything. It's just it's no wonder that they do what they do the way they do it, because and when they leave the police department, they're frightened. They have this pep talk with the watch commander who tells them, it's not about arresting anyone. You come back alive, and you take care of your partner. And the thing was that there was this women police that they don't respect unless they're really really dangerous and violent and all that sort of thing like that. There was one lady who was trying to make an arrest. We came to her aid, another police, the watch commander I was riding with, and she had trouble trying to arrest this guy. And she had a little mace can or something like that. And the watch commander had to take over and try to put the handcuffs. He had trouble putting handcuffs on this guy. And she just stood there, And anyway, when she put him in the car and took him off, he was so angry with this woman. He was saying, could you see what she did? I had problems arresting this guy and putting handcuffs on him. She just stood there. And later on that night, these two women police officers, plainclothes women police officers came, and they talked like sailors, the language they use and all this sort of thing like that. They would shoot you in a minute. Now, they were the women that he respected and liked, because they knew that if something happened, their back, they would be, what is the expression?
They got their back.
Yeah, watch his back, whatever it is. And so there was this inherent dislike for weak people, and particularly for women if they haven't proven themselves. And where I got this story from, it was an article in the paper about this Jewish cop who was about to retire, and he talked about his experience being in the department and all the racism he had to take, and so on and so on. That he was alone. And one of the things being a police officer, it's a community that you get support from your officers, from your other officers. If you don't have that, you know, your life is in danger. You know, you don't get any help. Sometimes you're sent into a place where, and purposely you can get injured. But anyway, but I wanted to have a person who's kind of ambiguous in a way that obviously she's a female, but you don't know what she is, and this is important, you know. She's just trying to do her job, but even just trying to do your job, she has all these names. She's being branded as this such and such and such, and you know. So I wanted that dynamic, and I wanted to have a relationship between Michael Boatman and her that isn't a love relationship, but one of dependence and respect, you know. Whereas it doesn't have to be a romantic thing, but one of the things is that in police officers, you learn that the only people that they trust are other police officers, because they think that they're the only ones can understand them. And so there's a high rate of divorce and all sorts of crazy stuff in their family and stuff. So the thing was, JJ's girlfriend was jealous because Lori Petty's character had a more profound relationship with JJ than she could have or ever have, in a sense. You know? So I wanted that sort of tension and jealousy to come out, not a romantic conflict or, you know, that sort of thing, but one where, you know, she knew that she couldn't compete on a certain level with Lori Petty and that sort of thing, character. If that makes any sense, anyway.
Well, thank you very much for joining
thank
us.
You.
Please,
Thank you.
if you haven't seen, we're going to do To Sleep with Anger next. So if you haven't seen that, you should definitely go get your